Welcome to Quantum Touch Radio, Supercharging your life with Jennifer Noel Taylor. Jennifer takes you on a quantum journey to discover how to supercharge your life working with universal healing quantum touch principles. Imagine knowing how to accelerate, revitalize, and engage in ways you've never experienced. In this hit show, we reveal powerful, simple steps to create more abundance, better health, emotional and mental vibrancy, and happier relationships. Imagine being simple and supercharged to cultivate life force energy for yourself and others. Get ready to be astounded. Now, here's your host.
Hi everyone, welcome. You're listening to Quantum Touch Radio, Supercharging your life. I'm your host, Jennifer Noel Taylor. And today on the show, we have, oh my gosh, I'm going to botch this. Okay. Thea Willette, Quantum Touch Practitioner. Actually, did I pronounce that right? Because I always try to mess up names.
You got the first part, yeah. Thea Willette.
Okay. Thea Willette. So she's on our show today. She's a Quantum Touch Practitioner. And I'm really excited because she has an amazing story about how she used Quantum Touch and with the birth of her child and her pregnancy. And I presume to get pregnant as well, right? So I'd love to dive right into your story about how you use Quantum Touch to bring another soul into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So I learned about Quantum Touch actually after I had my second child. I think my son was 11 months when I learned about Quantum Touch. I'd always been drawn to wanting to help people, to heal people. At least I thought I wanted to be that. I wanted to be someone who could heal people. And I have a background in the medical industry, and I worked in a medical profession, but I just felt like there had to have been something more. And then that's when I came across Richard Gordon's video on YouTube where he talked about Quantum Touch. So I learned about Quantum Touch. And then I just so happened there was a weekend available and there was a local workshop. So I had gone and I was pretty amazed by it and just how simple it was, just by using our breath and our intention. And then of course, a few other principles, but it really felt real. So I thought that was really cool. So I kind of used that like whenever I was nursing my son or rocking him or even snuggling my older son, I would run the energy into them. And I thought that was very powerful. And then when it came time, so I did another workshop and I became a practitioner. And in part of that, I learned the self-created health. And then when it came time for us to have our third child, it just wasn't happening. And I really was interested in what Richard Gordon had taught me through the self-created health and how we create our health. So I used those principles and I applied it to the fact that we weren't getting pregnant. And it really brought up a lot of, I guess, undealt with emotions. A lot of kind of deep-seated anger and mainly it was kind of like a frustration. And when I went through his steps and I released that, the following month we got pregnant with our daughter, which was pretty amazing. And then throughout that pregnancy, because now I knew how to run the energy, I would run the energy. So I'm happy to say that I didn't have any morning sickness with that pregnancy. That was pretty awesome. I had some aches and pains and stuff. And when that came up, I would run the energy and that certainly helped. With my previous two pregnancies, I had major heartburn. And whenever I noticed that heartburn came up with my third pregnancy, once again, I would run the energy. And by the end of the night, that heartburn would have subsided without having to do any other intervention, which that was always pretty cool. And then by that point, I was part of a group of other practitioners and we would send energy to each other or to another person who was in need. So as I came up to my delivery date or my due date, they began running energy into me for the labor and delivery, which I thought was pretty cool. And then my daughter was overdue, and then the pandemic started. And so definitely a lot of emotions. And they continued to send the energy into me, and I just felt so relaxed. It was so great. So when I had my daughter, it was April 9th, 2020. So 3 weeks into the pandemic, and they ran the energy, and it was such a beautiful experience. I was able to have my daughter at home. I was able to have a natural birth, and yeah, the contractions kind of started in the morning, but it was definitely manageable, and I could still make breakfast for the family. And we kind of went down into the playroom, and it was finally around noon. My husband was like, we should really call the midwives. And I'm like, oh, I think I'll be okay. Like, we'll just wait till it gets a little stronger. I think around 12:30, I finally caved. I finally agreed to calling the midwives. The midwives came around 1 o'clock. By this point, the contractions had definitely picked up, and I kind of had to take breaks between contractions. And then my daughter was born at 1:39. So less than an hour that the midwives were there. And I'm not going to say it was easy. I mean, it definitely had its challenges. Like I definitely felt the pain. But I find that the energy really helped me just relax. I felt really supported. I knew I could draw on these energies during that labor, and that really helped. And yeah, my beautiful daughter was born, and it was a really cool story. It was just a really cool experience more than that. Yeah, to have that moment with my daughter.
Do you think quantum touch helped reduce like the time you were in labor? Because that seems, what I've heard is people tend to go into labor for 12 hours or 14 hours. And it seems like pretty quick.
I think the funny thing about it was the night before, I swear I felt a contraction. I'm pretty sure I did. But my husband and I started watching the movie 1917, the war movie. And I got so anxious watching that movie. I swear watching that movie just stopped the contractions, because I thought for sure I was going to go into labor that night, and then it didn't happen. I ended up going to bed, slept the night, which was awesome. And then it wasn't until the morning when I kind of started feeling crampy again. And I'm like, okay, this is day 9 overdue. Like, I think this is going to happen. Yeah, I think it definitely helped with the pain. I feel like with labor, if you can relax into it, I know that sounds really strange. But yeah, if you can breathe into it and just kind of surrender to the process, it really helps. And I don't feel like I was fighting the process. I really felt like I could trust my body and surrender into that. And I really just felt supported. Like I knew that all these people loved me and were sending me their energy. And yeah, I really felt like I wasn't alone in that moment, if that makes any sense. I didn't have to do it on my own. I had that help.
Yeah. So, and you said you use self-created health. I'd like to hear more about that, because I love that process. So I'd like to hear more about how you feel that helped. It's interesting. I know a lot of people have trouble getting pregnant. And so I thought I'd start there. Like, how do you feel like that helped you actually get pregnant? Like, was the emotions really in the way, do you think, initially?
Yeah, I think trying to think back to all of those details. Yeah, I think going into like, okay, we're going to have our third baby. We're going to start trying. Like it was very like controlling, like now we're going to do this. And I don't think it works like that. And I think it was going through the self-created health questions. And I know Richard had a hard time getting to the discovering what that core issue was. It did take some time, but it really came back from this need to control and this need to, and the emotions behind that. So when I could process that and move through like releasing those undealt with emotions and then moving into a state of I'm perpetuating this to myself, and then moving through the states of forgiveness and then into that self-love and really accessing that love and feeling at peace with that, I felt like I was able to just kind of like release all that control and or not feel like I had to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
I-
when you like release the control, do you feel like you pretty much instantly got pregnant? Like, do you feel like that was the key element for you in that scenario?
I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff at play, but for sure, like I think once you kind of relax and trust into it, right? You set the intention that when I am meant to have a child, this child will come, and just to trust the process and really just believe in that and really just love yourself in that moment, right? That you don't. I think I had a lot of identity beliefs around like I have to have these kids to be the person that I need to be. Like I felt like I needed them. And I think once I could just relax and know that I was enough, right? And I could love myself without that, right?
Mhm.
It's like it got rid of the attachment to it.
Mhm.
Um,
The irony of it, right? That's the irony of what I've seen a lot is when you finally let go of the attachment to it, it tends to manifest. And
yeah.
it's like it's a big lesson, I think, for a lot of us in
Mhm.
this field.
Mhm.
And I think that's sometimes hard to do, to just let go of the attachment and not try to control the outcome, because we may want it so
Mhm.
badly.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really good message for our community. I hear that a lot with customer service or our calls, that people are just really frustrated that what they're wanting is not manifesting. And a lot of that, releasing that frustration can allow it to manifest. So
Mhm.
I'd like to talk more about that after we come back from break, but we're going to go on a quick break. And thank you so much for sharing your story, and we'll be back. Well, welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Quantum Touch Radio. I'm your host, Jennifer Noel Taylor. And today we have Thea Gunther, or Willette, sorry, like looking at your profile there. And Thea Willette. And we're talking about letting go of attachment and how they were struggling a little bit to get pregnant. And then we did this self-created health process to let go of attachment. And that seemed to facilitate the process. And I've noticed a few similar stories in my life. One was like all throughout my 30s and my 40s, I wanted to manifest a partner. I really wanted a partner, like badly. And every time I'd go out, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll meet him tonight, or that kind of mentality, like super attached. And I'd be in relationships, but they weren't with the right person. And after my previous relationship, I finally said, I'm going to let this go. I'm fine on my own. I'm going to be fine on my own. I actually believed it. I was decided to let go of that attachment. And then my partner manifested, like I'm now engaged to get married. So that is really powerful. And it's kind of ironic because you think like maybe the more you want it, the faster it'll manifest, but it seems to be not the case.
Mhm.
And I'm curious, for scientists in the audience, like why do you think that's true? Like, why do you think the more attached you are, the harder it is to manifest? Like, what do you think's going on there?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're just holding on to it. And I think you don't have an open mind, like, right? When you are holding on to the attachment. And I think you begin to stress about it, right? Or you begin to think that everything could be it, and it becomes too consuming. But yeah, I mean, further than that, I don't know. And honestly, that's something I'm still working with myself because it's
Mhm.
tricky to let go when you want it so bad.
Mhm.
Because I find little things like at one point, my mom said that she was doing an outdoor yoga class. And I was like, wow, that's really fun. Like, I would love to do an outdoor yoga class. And then we moved to a new city, and I don't know a lot of people here or events. So I didn't think anything of it. And then a couple of days later, I was registering my sons for swimming lessons. And then on like the next tab, it had like fitness programs. And I was like, oh, I wonder what they offer. And then sure enough, they offer outdoor free yoga classes. So I was able to register, and the next day I went to an outdoor yoga class. And I was like, wow, that just manifested in like 3 days, and out of nowhere, it felt like. But I didn't have the attachment to it because I was like, oh, it's an outdoor yoga class, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it's bigger things like I want to have a baby, and that's all you can think about, and it consumes you, it's harder to let go of that attachment. But I really felt like with quantum touch and being able to run the energy, and then the whole self-created health process, it really is about bringing you back into love and feeling that love, and like filling yourself with that love and just being in that. And it totally shifts your energy, and you're not in that need, right? It's like a lower frequency.
Yeah, I think part of the problem with the attachment is, like you said, the lower frequency, because neediness is scarcity, right? So if you're like in a scarcity mentality, it's a lower frequency. And if you're feeling scarce about something, it projects that scarcity out. So that's what you get, is scarcity. But I think the other thing too is when you're like really attached to an outcome, there's like no room for fluidity. So that means like you're just set, like it has to be one way on my time frame and on like how I want it. And so it's a very narrow type of energy. And I believe the universe, like if you allow it to be more fluid, things can manifest more easily in general. So when you get too attached to something, that there's no room for like a fluid reality. I know money is a big one for people, and it's been a big one for me. And I think it's challenging because we get attached to it, obviously, because it's tied into our survival. If we don't have enough money, we don't have a home, we don't eat. So that's hard not to get attached to it. But then I've noticed if you're too attached to wanting money, not only are you coming from scarcity, but you kind of hold money in this very narrow, miserly way. Like I only get like a couple hundred a month, or you hold on to it. And whereas I think money can be really fluid, like it can come and go, and you can give it away, it'll come back, and you're not stuck to certain dollar amounts. It can really expand. And I've been learning that about money. It can be a lot more fluid. And so if you let go of that attachment, it's a little easier. But I think that is hard. I think it's really hard. People get so like upset about wanting a child, right? I mean, the frustration and the fertility issues, and the irony I think I've seen where people finally adopt a child and then they have one on their own. It's just they finally let go of the attachment. So I just think there's something really there. Question. Yeah, definitely something there. I was going to ask too, what inspired you to be a practitioner? I'd love to hear like how you got interested in that.
Yeah, like I said, I come from a medical background. I worked as a medical professional for over 10 years, and I guess in the medical field for 15 years. So I've always had this desire to want to help people, right? And I always thought I'd want to heal people. And I did my job, and it was rewarding, but there was always something that I just felt like there was something missing. It wasn't quite there. And then that's when I came across Richard Gordon's video about quantum touch, and about how you can use the energy and it's trusting our bodies that we heal ourselves. And I thought that was so powerful. And really it was just feeling that within myself. I just wanted to keep learning and learning. And then once I could see those shifts in myself, I'm like, I want to share this with people. Like I want to actually be able to help people and teach them how to help themselves. I just thought it was so powerful, and it's just so simple, right? It's something we do every day. We're breathing and thinking all the time. So it's like learning how to breathe and think in a way that's going to be beneficial to our body. And I mean, that being said, it's easy, but then it's hard because we get, and this is kind of like the attachments, we get attached to our identity and who we are and our habits, and it's hard to change that, right? And then that's when quantum touch brings in the intentions, and when you could match your intention then with the breath and the energy, and then like that's where the power comes from. But yeah,
There's something, yeah. I wanted to talk about the self-healing part. This is really, really important. I get a lot of questions in, can quantum touch fix me? Or can the pendant, remove my pain, or these types of questions. And I really feel like if we can empower people that the healing is self-healing, like we're facilitating the energy, that to me is where the power lies, like the power is within us, and encouraging that in our clients and community. How has your experience been with clients as far as, are they coming in expecting you to fix them, or are they open to the self-healing idea?
Yeah, I think it depends on their background, because I think a lot of people think the energy is just gonna like heal them, and like it can if you're open to it, right? But yeah, it's that understanding that your body knows how to heal. So once your body gets this abundance of energy, right? So as a practitioner, we work to raise our vibration. So hopefully our client, like we can raise it up, right? And then there's this abundance of energy. And I always tell them, like, your body's going to use this energy and it knows how to use this energy. So when you are open to it, then your body's going to go to the root cause, right where it needs to, and start healing from there. And then I always remind them that that root cause might not be the symptom that they're complaining about, right? So the healing might actually happen somewhere else, but it's all going to kind of work together, because our body is this intelligent system that is all connected. And then I think once they feel the energy, because I always say, once, it's hard to explain it, it's hard to talk about it, but like once you can feel it, you know it. And I think once your body experiences that like vibrancy, you're going to want more of it. And I think you just naturally begin to seek out different experiences and environments where you can feel that, because once you've been like awakened to that vibrancy, you're almost going to be addicted to it, right? It feels good. You feel good in it. So you're just naturally going to be drawn to other experiences, like if you are open to it, which I think is really cool.
That's really cool. I liken it to, if you have a cut, and you have to get stitches. The stitches don't heal the cut. The body heals it. The stitches just hold it into place so you don't get a scar. But I think it's really important for people to recognize how powerful they already are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great that, the self-healing aspect is so powerful for people. That's one reason I too love working with quantum touch.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a few minutes to our next break. Do you have a quick story you like to share? Like, I guess actually we only have like a minute left, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll take the break early. And then we'll come back. I'd like to hear some stories about some of your healing work with clients. So we'll go ahead and start our break. Well, thank you, everyone. Well, welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Quantum Touch Radio. On the show today, we have Thea Willette. She's a quantum touch practitioner. We've been talking about all kinds of topics about using self-created health with pregnancy, letting go of attachment. And now I'd like to talk about some of the healing stories that you've had with clients. So would you like to share some of the stories you've had with working with clients and what they've experienced with quantum touch?
Yeah, so I had one client. She told me that her hips were not aligned. So they were out by she said 15 centimeters. And this was a distant client, so I wasn't able to check that for myself, but she said that that's what it was, and it's been uncomfortable, and she was very skeptical of this work, but she wanted to know if it could align her hips. So I reassured her that I was going to send the energy, and that if she was open to it, her body would use the energy and heal as it needs to be, based on its own intelligence. So I did the distant healing. I ran the energy for an hour. I really felt it kind of work through her body. I called her at the end of the hour session, and she told me that she didn't feel anything, that she wasn't quite sure that it worked. And I was like, okay, well, I was like, everyone kind of experiences the energy differently. So just kind of be open and just kind of notice your body for the next week and just see what comes up and let me know. And then I hear from her the next day, and she was blown away. So about an hour after we ended the energy, she said she felt this, she had to lay down on her couch, and then she felt this like pain cramp in her hips, and she felt like she had to turn, and she said it was really intense. And then she kind of like turned back over, and then it kind of dissipated, and she got up, and she felt kind of off. So she kind of like looked at her hips and she kind of measured them, and she said they were only out by like a centimeter. So she was completely blown away that that had happened and that she experienced it afterwards. And then she said, the other interesting thing was, she's like, my blood pressure is normally really high. And she's like, I decided to check it and it had normalized. So I don't know.
Wow.
I think that is just a beautiful side effect too.
Right.
And that one always stuck with me because she straight up told me that she's skeptical. She's not quite sure how this energy works. And then even after the session, she's like, yep, I didn't feel anything, or I didn't notice anything. And yet she had such a transformation with her hips. So I thought that was really cool. And then the blood pressure was just a cool side effect. And I've had that with more clients too, that they say it does kind of help with their blood pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is really cool for a couple of reasons. I want to point out a few awesome things about this. One is she didn't feel it right away, and then later on she felt a change. And so sometimes, the skeptics out there who say they're not feeling anything, my recommendation is give it some time. And that's really awesome. The second thing is that it's holistic. So it wasn't like things don't interact with each other, right? So the body doesn't work in a vacuum. So if you work on the hips, the blood pressure goes down and you have other effects. And I think that's really, really awesome because it's like a holistic healing technique. So it's not targeted to one specific issue. So I love hearing stories like that. And thank you for sharing that one. I had an interesting customer ask me about how many sessions it takes to see improvements. And I have found that question really hard to answer, because when people call up, because everything is self-healing, it can be one session, it can be 30, it could be like the wrong modality for them. They might be better off doing a different modality. So when clients call up and ask you how many sessions is this going to take, do you have how do you answer that for your clients?
Yeah, I really just start with what their comfort level is, right? Like what they're comfortable with. If they don't have a background in energy, they might not trust it, right? So they might just kind of want to dabble. Somebody with a experience in energy and more of a sensitivity to it might be more open to just booking a group of sessions. But yeah, it really just depends on the person and their willingness to change, right? Like it is still a transformation, like a change has to happen, right? And how willing is that person to be open to that change? I think that makes a huge part. Yeah, so like there is no set answer. I normally space my sessions out at least by a week, because I always let them know like the energy is going to continue to kind of work and do its thing. So just kind of be open to the shifts and how it integrates into your day to day, and just go with that, right? And just trust the process, because hopefully then they can kind of use that energy and kind of integrate it.
Yeah, I think that's really important. That again, it's the letting go of attachment, the surrendering to the process rather than trying to control it or evaluate it constantly. I know we've been trained that the body, I don't know about you, but in the medical industry, there's this idea that the body is sort of a chemical, blob of chemicals, and then we just manipulate the chemicals, things improve. And I think it's untraining that idea that it's not like we're not computers where you have like input and then output. And it's not just a chemical reaction, we're more holistic. And I think that's really important for people to grasp a hold of with that. Yeah. So do you have any?
On that note, I was just going to say, no, I started kind of playing with when I send the energy, I like to send it to each cell, right? Because I have this idea that each cell is working together to create your body and to perform all the functions in your body. So when all these cells are working optimally, it's going to work, right? So I like to infuse each cell with this love and each cell with the energy that it needs to do its job and to be vibrant, right? For each cell to have that DNA kind of activated so that it can reach its full potential. Because if all of our cells can reach their full potential, then we can, right? That's who we are. So that's been a really fun way of sending the energy. And because when you think of, I want to dive more like into the science behind it, but like if you think of a molecule, they're all connected with a bond, right? So I try and send the energy into that bond and just align everything as it needs to.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant way to work with people. And I think the missing piece, so, at the beginning you're talking about there's this missing piece when you were in medical field. And I really think that missing piece that we all kind of maybe intuitively know that's there, but we can't really be measured, is that we're spiritual beings. We're not just chemical, physical beings. There's like a whole spiritual element. And that really means that we're energetic beings, that we have a soul, that we're beyond physical. And it's interesting, our terminology, like my body, even our terminology sort of speaks to that. And so I just think when people start to realize that the spiritual health of a person, like how they are spiritually, like if they're connected to source and their mission, that is what feeds the cells. Like our life force energy feeds the cells. So and you're sending them energy. So I think that's really brilliant to surround the cells in that loving spiritual energy, because that is fuel for the cells, maybe more than food even. And that is like a different way of thinking. So what's your take? So this is a question that's probably a big can of worms, but what's your take on the integration of like science and spirituality? Like do you have a perspective on that?
I mean, I definitely think that they can integrate, right? Like even when I worked my job and I was seeing patients daily, I would use what I learned for quantum touch, because I could normally, when a patient comes into a medical setting, there's a lot of anxiety. And now that I started to learn about quantum touch and learning about energy and becoming more sensitive to it, I could feel that anxiety. So when the patient came into my room and I could feel that, I would just kind of start running my energy and just running my breath and just sending to the room, right, to calm. And I noticed my patients would relax, and it would help, which I thought was really interesting. And then I thought it would be so cool if I could share this with my coworkers and like share this with other people, right, if they were open to it. I did have some coworkers that were open to it, so I would share it with them, and they would notice the same thing, right? It just, you kind of interact with your patients on a different level. And I mean, they don't have to be aware of it, right? You're just kind of creating a nice, inviting atmosphere, right, where they don't have to be anxious during the procedure or during their visit. So it definitely can integrate, for sure. I mean, we definitely need science and medicine, and there's some things that they are perfect for, right? And we need them. Like we can't do without it. But if they come together, I think that would be really beautiful.
Yeah, I don't think you can have it in a vacuum. So like, for example, like if you eat certain foods or if you take certain drugs, it affects your spirit, and vice versa. How your spirit affects your body. So you're right. I don't think you can separate them. The interesting part is, you know, I have a thought, like I want to move my hand. There's a consciousness that affects, you know, matter. Like I just had a thought and it actually changes matter. So that to me speaks to the fact that we're actually powerful enough to change matter because we're doing it every second, every day. So your thoughts and your spirit and your emotions can really impact your body. And yeah, that's what I love about the energy work is it allows you to actually see evidence of how your energy can change your body. And that's really exciting. The other thing that I find interesting, and maybe I'd love your comment on this since you've been in medicine, is like, look at how tiny these little prescription drugs are, right? This little tiny thing can make a profound impact on your body. I don't think it's just chemicals. I think it's the vibrational energy of that. Do you have a theory on that?
I mean, yeah, it's the intention, right? If you're taking your pill and you have the intention that this pill is going to heal you, then, I mean, the pill might heal you, but the intention itself is going to help too. I mean, then you kind of get into the placebo effect, and like if you trust your doctor and like you have a good relationship, and that's all the energy too, right? If you feel safe in what you're doing, it's going to help you. Yeah.
I just was amazed that something that small can make a big impact on a whole person, you know. Random thoughts I think about. Yeah. Well, anyways, we're going to go on our next break and then we'll be back. So thank you, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Quantum Touch Radio. I'm your host, Jennifer Noel Taylor, and today we have Thea Willette. She's been a Quantum Touch practitioner, and she's been sharing her story of how she's been using Quantum Touch and self-created health to help with pregnancy and childbirth. And we've been talking about letting go of attachment. And then I know you have this amazing story you want to share about when you were working in the medical field about, it's actually a hands-on healing story. So I'd love for everyone to hear that.
Yeah. So I had this patient, and this was still, I think, when I was working through to become a practitioner, and it really kind of just showed me how powerful energy is when you can become aware of it. So I had this patient, and she had just experienced a miscarriage. And when she came to see me, I was aware of it too. So I was able to be very sensitive and just compassionate for her as she went through this. And she told me that she was pretty sure that the miscarriage has already happened, but we just had to check anyways. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I think it passed on the weekend. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, yeah, I was at a friend's house for dinner. And my friend knew what was going on with me, that I was, that my baby had passed, and I was just waiting for the miscarriage to complete. And her friend brought her down to the barn where she has this horse. And she said that this horse is just very healing. So this lady put her hand on the horse and just kind of pet the horse for a little bit. And she said she just felt like the miscarriage happened, like right then. And then later, a couple of days later, when she came to see me, and that we would check and see that it was all gone. And it was really powerful, because I couldn't believe in that moment that would happen. And just the energy qualities, like we're all energetic beings. And when we can tap into that, it's powerful. And yeah, that story's always stuck with me. And it was one of those stories that kind of, I guess, opened my awareness to this and just how powerful it can be.
Yeah, that's a really amazing story. I mean, a lot of times we get these intuitions about like what's going on, or, you know, she had the really powerful intuitions about what was happening, and we tend to not want to trust them. And, but I think that's amazing. She trusted the intuition. Animals are really healing. I mean, we all love animals, and getting a healing experience, that's a really, really beautiful story. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. It just kind of reminds me from that, like all of us, like taking the opportunity to slow down and listen to our intuition, and believe that healing is available for us.
Mhm.
And on that note, I know for a lot of people right now, there's a lot of fear and anxiety going around the world with all the circumstances going on. I was wondering if you have anything that you do with clients regarding fear and anxiety and how quantum touch has helped with that. If there's any specific information you can give us about that.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of my clients coming with a lot of anxiety, anxiety and anger. And I've been studying a lot to the emotions in the body. And I find when I get into that, I like to go into supercharging and elements of supercharging and working with the colors. I find that's very comforting, and it's really bringing people back into this safe moment and into this ability to trust themselves and trust that love, right? And breathe into that love. And then well, with the supercharging, it's kind of working with the other chakras and like grounding in. I find that is powerful in helping people. And yeah, and it really brings them into this sense of peace. They just feel light at the end of it. But yeah, it's just reminding ourselves that we're pure love and we don't have to be scared. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things is when you can actually feel energy.
Mhm.
And we've all done this, or the ball of chi, where you can start to feel that energy between your hands. When you start to feel it, and then you start to realize that there's a part of you that's eternal, that's that's not just physical, that you're more than what's going on right now. I think that can help bring a sense of peace to anything going on, because on the spiritual level, it's all okay, and it's all, I believe there's always a happy ending to this, right? Because when we're eternal beings, there's always more love available. So I just think that message, working with the energy, feeling yourself as an energetic being, can be very comforting to people.
Yeah, and I like to remind people too, like, to feel into your body when you're feeling that anxiety, because I know with myself, like your whole body just kind of can buzz when you're anxious, right? There's a lot of energy moving through there. So we can really just imagine that we can take that energy and like run it through our heart and turn that into love and self-love, right? And it's giving us that time to be back into the moment and be present. And like when you can do that, of course, you're bringing yourself back into the present moment and into that love. And that can be very powerful too, because then you kind of ground yourself back into that love. And then moving forward, you're going to make decisions based on that love and not based on the fear and the anxiety.
Yeah, I find that when I make decisions based on fear and anxiety, I don't really make good decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
So I really think if, we've been experimenting. I got to say, like, quantum touch, sometimes, it's been a stressful year for quantum touch too. And so I've been getting on calls with our staff, and we've been experimenting with, if there's something comes up that's challenging in the business, instead of just reacting, because the tendency is all of us to just react, is to first send it energy and love. And so stop and, just send it love and energy. And we've been doing more energy work when there's problems. We've been talking more about how to work with the energy to solve our, problems in the business, or challenges, or, people not getting along sometimes. And I'm finding it like it's much more relaxing to work that way. When we start really incorporating the energy into just everyday life. And we have a few minutes left, so I was wondering if you could talk about how people can find you if they like a session, and that'd be great.
Yeah. So you can find me on my website. So it's www.theawillette.com. So I have all my information on there. I have lots of my the healing stories are on there too. And then you can book just like a consultation chat. So learn more about the energy, learn more about if it's a good fit for you, or you can go right ahead and book sessions too. which is really cool. So I do energy work, and then I do specialize in working with women in fertility and pregnancy and childbirth and all of that. So if you're interested in that, I do, my heart goes out to all those women because I was there too.
That's great. So so just to recap, www.theawillette.com. And definitely, I think you're awesome. I really appreciate being on the show. I've known you through some of our meetings, and I loved the first time I heard your story and saw your third child, and just it was just an amazing story. And I hope everyone can get a chance to meet you and work with you. So thank you everyone for tuning in to Quantum Touch Radio. If you want to find out more about Quantum Touch, go to quantumtouch.com. And thank you, Thea, for being on our show. It was great to interview you, and great. We'll see you all next week.
You've been listening to Quantum Touch Radio, supercharging your life with Jennifer Noel Taylor. Tune in on transformationtalkradio.com as you take a quantum journey and tap into universal healing quantum touch principles to create an amazing supercharged life. For more information about Quantum Touch, visit quantumtouch.com, and remember, accelerate, revitalize, and engage in your supercharged life.